Hi, everybody, and welcome to So What Happens Next, a show where we take on a movie that we've never seen before, see if we can come up with what it might be about, and then watch it and talk about it and see how right we are and how wrong we were in other parts. I'm one of your hosts, Thomas.
I'm Amber.
And this week, we are going back to the 90s and taking on a horror icon. It is Tony Todd in Candyman. So, Candyman, 1992. Specifically came out in October, so there's definitely a, Halloween movie probably gonna go for it.
Yeah.
That. Joining me today is my beautiful other half, Amber. How you doing, Amber?
Good.
Yeah. Today's episode is actually just the two of us. In the past, we've had Nima, we've had Patrick. We're just still growing right now as a show, and right now it's just the two of us, and other people will be on in the future when they have time. Life happens, and we don't want to hold anybody down and don't want to make anybody feel like they have to do it. All right, so let's get started. I got 5 things up on the board for Candyman. Number 1, hooks. Number 2, graduate students. Number 3, myths. Number 4, mirrors. And number 5, just to give this place kind of a chronological setting, the 1990s. So, Amber, let's go ahead and start with you. What do you think this movie is going to be about? Give me your back of the DVD box description.
Well, I thought the Candyman was based on like a children's story or a song. I think it's based on a song.
Yeah, the Candyman.
Yeah.
No, that's fucking Willy Wonka.
Oh, okay. No, there was like a different, or like some rhymery or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah. But anyways, obviously ends up being a serial killer, and they just dub him as the Candyman. And he, I guess, decides to stalk some grad students at a particular no-name college.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
So he's stalking grad students. So wait, okay, so he's a serial killer taking on like
the name Candyman based on the song.
Okay. And so what's where are the mirrors playing right now with this?
I have no freaking clue. Maybe he's actually an illusion, so he's not a real person.
Oh, so he's like
so I could see,
okay.
Yeah, so people see an image of him, but it's really themselves like killing each other, which would be kind of crazy.
Okay. You're talking like Willem Dafoe and Spider-Man seeing himself talk to himself.
Yeah, so there's like some alter ego.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so like everyone's looking, that'd actually be really cool, wouldn't it? Like you're looking in the mirror and you see, I guess in this case you'd see like Tony Todd staring at you and he's like, I'm gonna kill them. And so like you're just like, no, don't do it. Next thing you know, like you see him doing it, but it's actually you.
Yeah.
You get like spoilers for Fight Club, but you get like a Fight Club scenario.
Yeah, and I always imagine like the Candyman to be a pirate.
Well, that would answer the hook thing.
It would, but
I think it's I guess to jump into sort of my thing, I would say it's like a grad student studying myths or whatever, and he becomes the serial killer, or he's either tasked with catching a serial killer who's following myths, or he is in himself. You do like a Scream thing and he's like the killer.
Okay.
But I think that he just has a hook, like a meat hook he's killing people with, or I think that's how it starts.
Okay.
So I think it's like have you ever seen Urban Legend?
No, I haven't.
It's like it's such like a pinnacle, like if you watch it, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is a horror movie from the 90s. Like it's very much that. But I think there's some scene in it. It's just dealing with a bunch of urban legends is what it is. And I think like that's how I would perceive this movie is like each manner of killing is a way, like it's related to a myth. So you got like the hook, and the guy calls himself the Candyman or whatever, and then you have like he kills somebody with like a piece of glass from a mirror or something, and this grad student is like the only person really, like after his advisor's death, his murder, he's the only person left around who's like really well versed in this stuff, and so he's trying to figure out how do we catch this guy? And it takes place in the 90s, so you don't have like cell phones and shit to kind of
and of course the guy has nothing to do with candy. I'm just gonna like lay it out there.
No, I feel like the Candyman is like a misnomer. It's just creepy sounding. Like I feel
because
like,
then I start to think of like people handing out candy.
Yeah, like I think of like,
hey
kid, you want to get in my van? Like, you want to get in my van, kid? There's candy inside. Like that's how it is to me. It's just like that. I don't, before each of these episodes, I do like as cursory a search as I can get of these movies just to pull the 5 topics so that it doesn't ruin it for myself and it doesn't, mess any of my stuff up. But it's just like, that was not the vibe I was getting from the little bits talked about this, is I don't feel like it's some weird creep in a van. It just seems like, well, it's part of the vibe. There's something that we mentioned, it's somebody killing people, but I don't think candy is involved.
Yeah.
Which is weird. I feel like it's one of those, like, it's just going to be in song only. Like, we do the little rhyme or whatever, and, like, that's it. Kind of like what is it? Like Nightmare on Elm Street, when they're like, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. It's like that whole thing, it's going to be like that, but some stupid, silly song that they made up for Candyman. Yeah. And he's just like, I kill people, and I sing this tune, or like a creepy child.
It might not even be Candyman. It's just like, and that's what he's mad about. He's like, people keep calling me the fucking Candyman, and my name is Richard.
One Halloween night in 1972, a young Tony Todd was denied candy at the door of his neighbor's house. Since then, he has been known as the Candyman. Mm-hmm. You better watch out. You better not cry.
Yeah, because there will be, like, in a show, there's, like, a killer, that's going on a rampage, and they call him the wrong name. Or, like, in Spider-Man, they called him the wrong name.
Yeah, and then, of course, as everyone knows, that movie went on to be Spider-Man becoming a serial killer and slaughtering New York City. Of course, that's exactly what happened. He said, you're going to call me Spider-Man? I'm going to string you up. No, I understand what you mean. It drove him nuts. Which I guess would be like the best way to get under a serial killer's skin. At least in TV shows, you're right. Because like they do it in such a way where it's like, oh man, this is sloppy, or this is such shitty work. And that's like always how they catch the killer, because he's in the room and he hears them shitting on his deal. And he's like, you son of a bitch, it's the best work ever. I mean, oh my God, you're so totally right. I mean, no, you're not, but this is real bad. It's just, it becomes a whole fucking thing, and that's where you catch him. And I feel like the whole thing in this movie is it would end, like, how do you think it would end, I guess, to throw that out there? Because I have an idea how this movie would end, and I feel like it would play really well in the 90s, but that's just me.
I think they seemingly get rid of the Candyman, but kind of somehow he comes back. I'm thinking of, like, Nightmare on Elm Street when he's dead, but she looks in the mirror. And
you're talking about the remake one?
Yeah, the remake one. Yeah, and it's like...
That movie was, like... I almost enjoyed that. I remember seeing it in theaters. It was like me and a friend of mine when I was when I was in high school maybe. Mm-hmm. We snuck into it. Yeah. Because it was rated R and we were like 16. Mm-hmm. And we go in and they gave us like the weirdest look at the door because they're like, you two clearly are not old enough to be in this movie, but like we got tickets, so I guess they're allowed. But we went in and I remember like going, this movie's not terrible, right? Yeah. And then thinking, wow, I almost like this movie because it ended with like, oh wow, like she survived and they killed Freddy. Like, cool.
Yeah, and the fact that it was less cartoonish too.
Well,
from the first one.
And that was the thing, was like,
the first one is just like, oh, there's this guy,
I loved
around,
the cartoon,
like,
the cartooniness of the first one, or the original one is just hilarious.
Or it was especially Jason versus Freddy. That was probably like the worst one.
I don't think I've ever seen that one. Yeah, I remember it. It was a thing. It was a huge thing.
But he does some crazy stuff, like his head comes off and it spins around. I'm like, yeah, that's not.
Well, I remember stuff like crazy stuff like that in the original of Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. Like watching that and going like, but I like that one better.
Yeah, honestly. It's like super corny, like 80-ish.
Yeah, it's that like
type of thing, and that's what I'm expecting with this one.
I'm expecting it to be like Because this is what did I say? This was 1992.
Yeah.
So this is like right after all of that. You're moving into the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't think Scream has come out yet. I'll check while we're watching the movie, but I don't think Scream's come out to kind of do the big reset button on the 90s like horror movies.
Yeah.
But I would guarantee this movie's going to be like, oh, it's the 90s now. Here's some grungy
so is this movie
going
to be more like Jeepers Creepers?
You know what? I think it's going to be like proto Jeepers Creepers. Because Jeepers Creepers like 2000 something, right?
Yeah.
Like proto. I think it's going to be like, it's going to be sort of like pre-Scream, so you're going to get an 80s feel, but you're going to get like a 90s grunge.
Yeah.
I think that's where this movie's going to go. It's going to have that like, look at all these sexy college teens at college, even though they're not teens, but like, you know, and then it's just going to be, you know, this darker,
like let's
everyone's
like
getting
rip
killed
them
thing.
to shreds and
right. It's not going to be like a bunch of high school kids like romping around high school or like, you know, something along those lines. Like, oh no, we got to stop the vampire that's our teacher or some shit. Like this is going to be, I think, another step darker than that, but I think it's still going to maintain maybe a little bit of that 80s vibe, just because I don't think we've left it yet by 92. Like we're still living in there, getting ready, getting adjusted to the 90s. We're still getting our feet in the water. So, but yeah, so we're going to go ahead and take on this movie. It will be a few minutes, not even that, a few seconds for you guys. I mean, I always say a few minutes and it's like, you know, I go edit later and it's seconds. I don't know why I hype it up that long. But it's going to be a few seconds for you, and it's going to be approximately 1 hour and 39 minutes for us as we go and endure the Candyman. See you guys in a minute. All right, we're back. So, Candyman, huh?
Yeah.
What's your first thought coming out of the gate?
It is not what I thought it would be, honestly.
Yeah, same here. I was kind of like, I don't know. It was so... there's just so much about it that I was really not prepared for. I mean, it was like we were both right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is such a weird...
Yeah, because he was real, but only...
But not.
Yeah, but not.
So, I guess basically to go ahead and describe what this movie is, according to IMDb, the storyline is Helen Lyle is a student who decides to write a thesis about local legends and myths. She visits a part of the town where she learns about the legend of the Candyman, a one-armed man who appears when you say his name 5 times in front of a mirror. Of course, Helen doesn't believe all this stuff. But the people of the area are really afraid. When she ignores their warnings and begins her investigation, in the place that he is rumored to appear, a series of horrible murders begins. Could the legends be true? That's from IMDb. It's arguably not the most well-written thing I've ever read. But that town, if we can go ahead and talk about this from the get-go, that town they talk about is here in Chicago. Like, this movie takes place in Chicago, which was like, did not anticipate that happening. Mm-hmm. From like the opening credits, I was like, wow, this looks like how movies portray Chicago, like a grayer New York. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, hey, I know that, but what the fuck? Like, it just was like, oh, you're at the University of Illinois or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they're all over at U of I doing research on myths, I guess. She's like...
Yeah, or like children's stories, fables, something along those lines. They never really go into like what the program is, maybe like anthropology.
Yeah, I was kind of confused. Okay. Like, to me, I guess it would make sense to be like either some sort of folklore or anthropology thing. Yeah. I didn't... It seemed like it started as like a folklore thing and turned into an anthropological thing by the end, because it seemed like, oh, I'm going to talk about how this, like, you know, impoverished community in Chicago has attributed all these horrible things to a made-up boogeyman-esque creature. And, like, that was the angle of the thesis, which started didn't seem like really where that was going to me. So, yeah, the movie takes place in Chicago, which they constantly are showing you maybe the same 5 scenes of.
Yeah.
While we were watching it, because she makes a point in the movie, Helen, the main character, she makes a point, she goes, oh, my apartment, which, I just want to pause for a minute and talk about fucking what?
Yeah.
So, her husband is a professor at U of I.
Yeah.
She's a graduate student.
Yes.
They're living in fucking Northside Chicago, like in this big ass...
I think it's in Lincoln Park.
It's, yeah. So this is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The movie revolves around kind of 3 major locations. The university, her apartment, and the, Cabrini Green. So, the housing projects. So, straight up, you only really have, 3 major sets going on as far as where you're supposed to make. I went ahead and I was like, Cabrini Green, that sounds familiar, but I don't know where that is exactly. So I was looking through where this movie was filmed, and they make this big point to be like, oh, my apartment used to be at Projects, and it was right next to Gold Coast, so they're they built they had to change it, make it gentrified. They're trying to avoid the word gentrification in this movie like the plague, even though
and they're like, and here's condos.
Yeah, they're like, and now they made him condos.
But yet she's able to look on the other side, which is fucking some Coraline shit there. Let me open this door to this other world.
And that's the thing. They make it seem like they're driving across the fucking city.
Yeah.
Where they filmed the scenes in her apartment versus where Cabrini Green actually is maybe 5 blocks away.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah, everything there is vastly different. It's crazy, which, I mean, it's not like I don't believe that because it is Chicago, but...
Well, I think back in 1992 it was like that.
Okay.
They filmed at a place that had been more or less gentrified, and then they filmed at Cabrini Green, housing projects that they genuinely did.
Yeah.
There's some interesting trivia about that.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, all the exterior hallway and stairway scenes were actually filmed for a handful of days at the infamous Cabrini Green housing project.
Mm-hmm.
This is all coming from IMDb as usual, so again, take it with a grain of salt. Though the producers had to make a deal with gang members to film there.
Oh wow.
And then they had to make a deal with them to put them in the movie as extras.
Okay.
That way they could ensure the cast and crew's safety during filming. However, even with this arrangement, a sniper allegedly put a bullet through one of the production vans on the last day of shooting.
Oh, wow.
Nobody was injured, but
yeah.
Again, this is trivia from IMDb. So it seems like it's just unbridled whatever you want to put up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these things are today they're only a handful of blocks away from each other.
Yeah.
And I get, what they were talking about with the whole, you don't have the L in the highway to block you. You don't really have the highway to block you there. I don't know what they're getting at. But at least I didn't see it on the map. Highway's a little bit further west than that. Mm-hmm. But what I did notice is that today, in 2020, about, almost 30 years later, there are apartments and homes going for $1.12 million in Cabrini Green today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's shocking because it was a real thing. I mean, they had gang members and had problems there, and now it's you could live there for $1 million.
It's interesting to see how things change, even if the movie is very fiction.
Well, I mean, the movie was and I think that's
But the commentary they had on who are you? You're not from this area. This is our area.
Well, arguably she's from across the street, but yeah.
But it was a bit of Chicago history
mm-hmm.
that they touched on.
And
I didn't really
like
think they would do that. I thought it was going to be more focused on the...
Well, and it's such an interesting thing because when you watch a movie like this or another movie that comes to mind that, Amber, I know you haven't seen it, is The Blues Brothers. That movie takes place, I believe the movie was from the 70s,
mm-hmm.
the late 70s. It takes place in Chicago. And you see what Chicago looked like in the 70s. You see what Chicago looked like in the 90s in this movie. And we live here today, and it's just oh, wow, this is still, even compared to 92, really different. It made me think a lot of our first apartment when she's oh, yeah, this was a project building, and all they did was put plaster over the cinder block walls and walked away. And I was all I could think the entire time was like, hey, our first apartment had like cinder block walls that were covered in plaster. I wonder if I was like, oh, okay, maybe, I don't know, because who knows?
Yeah.
But it's that kind of stuff where it's just like, oh wow, this is really, and I don't feel like it did it enough. Like, I don't really know what the moral of the story at the end of the day was for this.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I guess, how would you, if how'd this movie end? Like, if you want to go into like kind of the climax on, just for everybody who's listening.
The movie ended on a weird note. Like, Helen became the new messiah for like the black people after she killed Candyman.
Right.
And she saves the baby, returns the baby to the mom, and she becomes like
a hero.
Yeah, but she also becomes like the female version of Candyman,
which was
on white people.
Well, but that was the thing. Was like, but I mean, like, if you think about it, I would argue that like there's no point in the Candyman movie where the Candyman legend is making a distinction of race, right? Like, the movie opens up with, by the way, Sam Raimi's brother, who was the like Weasley guy who worked for J. Jonah Jameson at the Daily Bugle. That bad boy guy at the very beginning, that was him. Oh. And I was like, that guy looks really familiar. Like, we watched Spider-Man recently, so I was like, he looks really fucking familiar. But yeah, so it's like in that scene where he gets killed and all that shit, like that. I was just like, okay, Candyman's killing them. Like, they're white people, they're getting killed. And it would make more sense if he was hunting white people down, just because the whole legend that they provide was. And correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of glazed over for a minute on this. So the legend of the Candyman was like in the 1800s. You had this African American guy who was raised really well, went to like the best schools, but he was like a black guy. He fell in love with a white lady. Her brother got mad, hired a bunch of other white guys. No,
her father got mad.
Her father got mad,
and hired a bunch of basically
hoodlum
hitmen.
White guys.
Yeah.
A bunch of racist hoodlums to go kill this guy. And the way they do it is they chop his arm off, cover him in honey, and chuck him in a thing full of bees.
Yeah, and then give him the hook as like a...
stick the hook on his arm or something.
Yeah, and he basically died from all the
they're like, he got stung to death. I'm like, or he bled out. I mean,
that's true.
Like, that's the more likely thing that I think could happen. Then again, I've never been stung by thousands of bees, so who knows? But yeah, that's kind of weird you bring that up. I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
That is this whole like white savior thing that this movie kind of sort of, I don't know if it realizes it's doing. Like, because she becomes Candyman for like a minute.
Yeah, right? And I thought like the insinuation for like just a tiny bit when she's looking at the mural and there's that painting of the woman. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, she's that one reincarnated, but then that totally ended because she dies at the end. And
I wanted to ask you this: do you feel like this movie could have had like
when
I feel
he
like
was saying it was always you? I was like, oh, like they're
like Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, like Haunted Mansion.
It was like Haunted Mansion.
They're reincarnated in these.
Right.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing. So I wanted to ask you this: do you feel like this movie could have ended like do you feel like we saw every ending they put out for this movie? Because I feel like it could have ended where you saw it, and she just stays up there and is assumed to be the Candyman.
Yeah, I feel like it should have ended right there.
But see, I feel like it then could have ended with her in the fire, and she dies with the baby in the Candyman.
Yeah, like I thought she was gonna just throw the baby out or something.
Oh, I thought they were all gone. I thought either A, she was going crazy and just saw what she thought was the baby.
Yeah.
And it had been dead the whole time. She killed the baby at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that they all just die. And then I thought, oh, she's going to die and the funeral's going to be the end. When everybody who lives at Cabrini Green comes out and is like, they're like, okay, she died for us. Like, she was our hero. And then, like, that was the end of the movie. And then all of a sudden you get the Helena, whatever thing.
Yeah.
In the mirror. And she comes and kills her ex-husband. Which is like, I feel like each one of those scenes could have been the last one.
Yeah.
But it almost kind of came off like they couldn't decide.
Yeah, so they just included all of it.
Yeah, they just like chucked it all in there and then we're like, okay, cool. I mean, it ends on her. Like, we can make... Yeah. They ended up making like a trilogy of these movies. Yeah. So the ending we got kind of opens itself up for that, I guess.
But I never quite understood if it was her that killed all those people.
And
or if she was just the reincarnated Helen from...
Well, that's the thing. I feel like the reincarnation thing... was dropped.
Okay.
You know? I feel like that was like, it was always you.
I was like, oh, it could have just been her. And because when the doctor showed her the video and it was just her screaming, it was like, I thought at that point it was her, like just making it up in her head, or some type of illusion, or
and it wouldn't that
like
be the
curse
cool,
even.
Yeah, like that would have been the cool psychological thriller of like, oh yeah, she's like so into studying this that she became this killer, like.
And then the sweet thing.
That was so
sweet
weird.
To the sweet.
What? So is that? Part of me feels like that's like a vaguely like.
Because
thing.
One of them had
that?
razor blades in it, and I was like, is this like a thing for drugs, or because that's what I was getting from it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So I have something here.
Okay.
Sweets to the sweet is, it's a line from Hamlet.
Okay.
Is there?
I wish it would.
I mean, this is the thing. I feel like IMDb trivia.
Sweet.
IMDb trivia just kind of is like, oh, I know this thing, and I don't know anything else about it.
I don't even know what happens in Hamlet. What?
Hamlet's about a guy who. Hamlet. It's Lion King.
Okay.
Lion King is Hamlet.
I wish they would just say what it means. So here it says, sweets to the sweet refers to the flowers that Gertrude scatters over Ophelia's grave.
Oh, okay. Oh.
But how does that...
I would loosely be like... Because Ophelia goes crazy in Hamlet.
Oh, she does, and she kills herself.
Helen is Ophelia, I think, is what we're getting at.
Yeah, and she's going crazy.
And then, like, these sweets to the sweet... Oh man, I would be shocked if they put this much thought into it. But so like how you describe the scene, they're putting flowers on their sweets to the sweet, right?
Yeah.
They put the hook on her grave, so it's like hooks to the hook. I mean, like I think I might be trying to stretch it. Maybe they're trying to stretch it, but that's where it's going to me. Is like hook to the hook, hooks to the hook. Like you were the Candyman. Here's your hook. Sorry you had to die, I guess. I don't fucking know. But, like, yeah, that's it. Which was, oh, God, it was so gross. It was written in shit on that wall.
I know, because I was like, there's no way that's just blood.
Oh, no, like, it had, like, a third dimension. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
And, like, it had to be kind of recent, right? Like, shit doesn't just... Also, how much shit...
They had to have 10
like
people.
You had to have,
I was thinking about it. I was like, they would have had to have multiple people.
So this would have been like the leader of the gang.
Yeah.
The leader of the gang was like, all right, boys, come on down to the bathroom outside. Like we got a job to do. And it's just like, what are we doing, boss? It's like, we're gonna honor the Candyman. Just sit down, take a dump. And it's just like you have like 30 guys going just in and out of these stalls taking a shit, and you write it on the fucking wall. Like that was just gross. And it was.
Which now I feel so sympathetic towards the bees in that toilet.
She flushed it.
Yeah.
I would argue like 90% of the bee problem of today is because of Helen.
Yeah, she just like destroys them.
She just like
she should have called someone.
She should just closed it and ran away.
If you ever find bees like on your car, don't go through a car wash and try to get rid of them or like whatever. Like call someone that can help you get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because more than likely their queen or something is in there.
Arguably, like, you're dealing with...
But I see this all the time. Just shit like that where
it's like, you see bees in a fucking toilet all the time? What are you talking about?
No, or like... It's in the news where they're just like, oh, I had a bunch of bees on my car, and they just go through like a car wash, or like they spray the hose
just
on
like,
it.
Get them out. Call
and
a
I'm
bee.
Like, call
your local beekeeper. Like, I feel like that's what you're really supposed to do.
They can bring a vacuum, kind of like from Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, just suck them off and then take them somewhere safe. Like, it just seems to me like I feel like I've heard this. I feel like I've heard this.
The bee movie. Jerry Seinfeld.
Which was weird because it was like a joke I had when we were watching this. Was like, oh man, B-movie's just like a backdoor sequel of Candyman. Like, oh yeah, Jerry Seinfeld really wanted to milk that Candyman bunny. Like, what the fuck? Or I guess like there's 3 Candyman movies total.
Oh, okay.
And apparently this is allegedly Tony Todd's favorite movie of his period. The first one, I mean. But I would also argue that the reason it's his favorite is because he negotiated a bonus. This is, the rumor is he negotiated a bonus of $1,000 for every bee sting he suffered during filming of this trilogy. He was stung 23 times. So on top of whatever the hell else he was getting paid for this.
Oh, so 26,000.
23,000.
Oh, okay.
It's only 23 times.
Yeah, okay.
So he gets paid an extra $1,000. So he gets $23K doing all these movies alone just for getting stung. And then whatever else he's getting paid. I'm like, man, that's genius. If I had to do a movie where I'm dealing with animals, every bite or inconvenience, you're paying me $1,000 fucking dollars. Like, not a chance. But yeah, this movie, I mean, so like where, I guess based on our original thoughts and projections, like, kind of what we were thinking. So we had thrown out sort of a...
First of all, there were only 2 grad students.
Yeah, I know. I thought this was going to be... So yeah, that's what I was kind of getting with. It's like, what do you think like, how close were we? What did we really fuck up on it? What did we get right? I mean, the grad student thing...
Yeah, we got the grad student thing wrong.
Like, I envisioned kind of like, this is a teen, a hunky and sexy, like, grad students. It was totally not. It was a very real...
It was not a 1980s, like... Because usually you have, like, a group and then some kind of villain or...
You have, like, a Scooby... And that's how I thought it was going to end. I thought it was going to end in, like, a Scooby-Doo-esque... way. Like, I thought they were going to trap the Candyman, kind of how they ultimately do, but it doesn't come off that way. Like, they trap him and they kill him or stop him or whatever, but they trap him because they make 2 more of these, so he has to get out. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, it did not have that thing at all, and I'm wondering, is that maybe because this is pre-Scream? I mean, like, Scream kind of comes around and sets that up for the 90s,
Yeah, but then you have movies like It, which I think came before Candyman.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It came out... Well, it was written, I think, in the 80s, but the movie was in 91.
Oh, okay.
I believe. I mean, you're right. It was also, like, before
Yeah.
Scream. Like, you have all these things, because, like...
I feel like there were other movies that came out. Well, when the music started playing, I was like, oh, I'm getting, like, the Thing vibe from
the music, apparently... So, it came out in 1990. Okay. The miniseries came out in 1990.
Okay.
So, yeah, the movie... that eventually became a movie for people. But the book was written in 1986.
Okay.
Just to get a feel for it. And, yeah, it was, a group of kids, and then I guess eventually a group of adults who are doing this thing. And I feel like that's just not happening here. I mean, if anything, this is like a really weird... For instance, Amber and I...
It's very one-sided.
Well, Amber and I the other night... Well, at least the other night from when we're recording this episode, we watched Midsummer. And that is such a... Here's a group of... Yeah, and you pick off,
like, one by one until you're down to...
And here's a group of... Yeah. I wouldn't say, like, hunky, sexy, like, grad students, but it's, like, young, youthful grad students, right? The people in this movie, like... are arguably not that. I mean, not that they're, like, old, but, I mean, they're older people. They're more mature people. They're not, like, 21.
Yeah.
And one of them is married to, like, a professor, which is something I feel like isn't addressed in this movie enough, is... I know that first of all, the actress and the actor that play the Helen and her husband, Trevor, respectively, are like 6 years apart, I think. Trevor being older, her being younger. So he was born, I think, in 55, and she was born in 61. That's the actor-actress's age.
Yeah.
But, like, was it just me, or does Trevor look maybe, like, 10 years older than her?
He does,
like,
yeah.
It made me raise an eyebrow of, like, this cannot be your first wife, right, dude? Like, because he's, in the movie, he's, like, kind of canoodling around with one of his students.
He's repeating his
And that's what I'm sitting here. I'm like, has this happened before? Does Helen maybe know firsthand from a different perspective?
She acted like she knew what was going on.
Because it was so fucking obvious.
Yeah.
But it was also like...
And that girl wasn't exactly very...
I was not
hush-hush about it.
Yeah, I was not a fan of her.
I know.
Like, even the actress that played her in this movie, I was just like, okay, calm down.
I'm like, you're annoying. You're
I know, and she's barely in this movie.
I know, but everything she said or like did, like slams the door in the lecture room.
Well, slamming the door, and then it was like, she's clearly there to be like nothing more than, oh, look at me, I'm the pair of boobs on screen. Yeah. Like, that's it. And they make a point, like, when she's painting their apartment, she's wearing, like, lingerie under a jacket.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, who the fuck? And then at the end, she's wearing this like incredibly thin shirt or something like that, right?
You can see like her boobs.
Yeah, you can see everything. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I get it. That's what you're here for. But like, why are we spending like? I hated how like when she screams and she's just like flailing around, or when she comes down from the painting and she's like, get out of my house, and she's just like turns. When she turns, she looks like she's in mid cry, like within a split second. And I was like, okay, wait, what? Like. That's not how this works. Yeah. This is not how that works at all. Was not a fan of her. I mean, I feel like they just spent too much time with it. With that whole thing. Like, make it there, make it not. Yeah. You know? Like, fuck it. Somebody I did like, though. Actor that played that little kid. Who she talks to. Yeah. That kid was great.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely great.
Holy shit, that kid was great.
Yeah, he really, like, set things up.
Kid set the tone of this movie, like, so easily. And it's so sad because, like, I mean, actually, it might not be sad. Maybe he's doing something else that he really, really wants to do. I have no idea. But I went and looked through his portfolio. Yeah. And he's, like, not in a lot. Like, after this, he's in, like, a bunch of TV shows. Like, stuff has some, like, he's in, like, an episode or so of Baywatch. He's in a couple other episodes of things. And sadly, for the most part, he's playing, like, that, like, gangland black guy. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Like, you're probably getting shot by a cop or something in half these shows. Where I'm like, this kid was killing it in this movie. Like, when he's explaining the Candyman, and then he sees him, and he's like, burn him, and like he's like riling everybody up. I'm like, holy shit, man.
And then he comes to the funeral and drops
has the fucking hook in his jacket for God knows how far of a walk, and then just like chucks it in there with her, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. And that was like the hook. Yeah. And that was the thing, I'm like, that was the hook that Candyman had in his arm. Yeah. Which is confusing as shit. Because like we're led to believe that Candyman is like a manifestation of Helen's mind. Yeah. And that somehow he takes physical form. At some point. He has to.
Like
it's the only way this movie works.
Based on their beliefs.
Right. So like he becomes physical. Like he has to. Yeah. By the end of this movie, he's assumedly dead. Yeah. Kid took his hook. Yeah. Like the hook, because she has a different one when she's walking around. It's like an actual hook you meat and shit with. Yeah. Has handle and everything. His is like has nails in it and shit, and that's the one they throw in the fucking hole. And it's like, what's going on, movie? Is he a real thing or not? Because you have a piece of him. That's like saying he's a manifestation of your mind, and then holding his head up and being like, see, and it just doesn't make any fucking sense. And it didn't ruin the movie. I mean, all in all, it didn't really ruin the movie to me. It was there. It just was confusing as shit because I'm like, make up your mind, man. Like, what are we doing? This movie has a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. A Metacritic score of 61. It's declining in popularity, but you know, it's a movie that I think, at least my how should I say it? My like, you know, foray into horror movie, like Candyman was something that was mentioned constantly. Like it's one of those like scary as shit movies. I remember growing up like Candyman's so scary. You want to guess what the budget was for this movie?
I'm gonna go with $5 million.
Ooh, close. $6 million.
Oh wow.
Estimated budget $6 million. It almost made all of that back opening weekend. It grossed domestically $25,792,310. Okay. So I guess like that's, you know,
that's a win.
It's pretty good. That's a solid win. I mean, it's like 20 or 19K more, $19 million more. Sorry. Yep. I'm not good at math. But some of the reviews are not very in this movie's favor. One by I Hate Every Movie Else, which is just a combination of the words I hate every movie I see. So who knows? Maybe this is just a shit show.
Doesn't sound very reliable.
No, it doesn't. But what they say is Candyman, I'll try to read this in how I believe they intended the tone to be. Candyman is a tale about some researcher woman looking into mysterious murders that were committed by a demonic ghost named Candyman, which is not the plot, right?
No, that's not.
The plot was just her looking into the folklore of the story.
Yeah, so
so straight up, you got the wrong idea what this movie's about.
Your comprehension skills are
I'm curious if you watched it. I hate every movie I see. The lead woman, I can't remember her name. She was just that good. Goes through the movie doing stupid things. She puts herself in blatantly dangerous situations and then cries like a baby when she's hurt. But
that's not what we want. This is a horror movie. We want people to put themselves in stupid situations.
Right, that's the point. So, and also, she doesn't cry when she's hurt. She's like being assaulted in her mind, and then she wakes up in a hospital or something.
Yeah.
The Candyman isn't scary at all. Anyway, the hideous acting in this movie, mainly by the main character's idiotic actions, make this movie bad. Oh, the storyline wasn't good either. I believe a first grader wrote the script, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it's been my experience to not watch movies where the name Clive Baker appears in the credits. Don't see this for any reason. Completely unrealistic and unimpressive. Dude, it's a horror movie about a fucking mythical monster man. It's a boogeyman movie. Of course it's unfucking realistic.
Yeah, it is pretty unrealistic.
I don't understand. I don't understand why people do this. I mean, that was in like 2003, so I don't know what he's talking about unrealistic. I mean, 2003, we're just like rehashing.
That's like close to the Final Destination series, which is like, that's pretty unrealistic.
Tony Todd's in that too.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, at least in like one or two of them, I believe. I haven't seen him in a long, long time. He's at least in the first two, maybe. But yeah, it's like, get over yourself, dude. It's just a fucking horror movie. Like, I think horror movies are the one thing I just don't take seriously.
Yeah.
Like, walk in, just do it. Just watch the fucking thing. Whatever it gives you, just accept it and walk away. I don't know really what else to say for that, other than calm the fuck down. How do you feel about the remake that they're doing this year is supposed to come out?
After seeing this, I'm not sure. Like, I feel like they're going to pinpoint it to like one ending instead of like having three.
Oh, you mean they're going to do like a Terminator or Alien thing where it's like, no, forget all the ones that happened after one, this is the sequel? Or do you mean like...
I don't think it'll be a sequel. I think it's going to be a remake just like they did with the
okay,
movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're going to... Obviously, they're going to make it look better, so it's definitely going to be scarier.
Yeah.
But it was confusing, a little bit confusing throughout the film, especially with a lot of things just going on. So I feel like they're going to stick to like one point, and it would be kind of cool if it was just the Candyman being an actual monster. Like, that'd be better.
So you want it to be more...
Yeah, more than just an idea. Or like this like godlike figure.
Yeah, that's a good
worship.
point.
Yeah.
Because I kind of liked that it wasn't, I don't know, I liked that psychological end of it. I was not expecting it.
Yeah.
So yeah, according to IMDb, this is the plot of the new one.
Okay.
A spiritual sequel, in quotations, to the 1992 horror film Candyman that returns to the now gentrified Chicago neighborhood where the legend began.
Ooh.
So... they are going to actually acknowledge the fact that whole area is
Chicago.
Totally not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, first off, they're going to acknowledge it's Chicago. And second, like, they're going to actually acknowledge, like, oh, wait, no, we fucking gentrified the hell out of all these neighborhoods and pushed people further out. So that'll be... I'm kind of curious how they're going to handle that. Because, like, this other movie doesn't deal with it. This movie also looks like Jordan Peele's got a hand in the writing.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be produced by him.
It looks like at least a writership.
Okay.
Which I'm, hoping. Us is good. I haven't seen Get Out, but Us was really good. I mean, I feel like if you could bring that vibe to Candyman, it'd be different. It'd be interesting. I'd watch it. I also just, I like seeing Chicago movies. It's like, oh, I know where that is. Which is something that this movie was very Chicago.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, I mean, it's like, I guess people in New York do this, people in LA, people in any big city, I think, of the world do this, is where they just kind of say places. Like, they're like, Covent Garden, or Lincoln Park, and Uptown, and Southside. I'm from Southside. Like, this kind of stuff where they just say things, neighborhoods or streets, and the viewer's just supposed to go, yeah, okay, cool, I know where that is. And it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, some people do, and some people might, but it's just like, you know, when she's like, oh, I'm from Southside, it's like, you might know that. I feel like this movie didn't do a good job. I mean, it really harped on, like, and I mean, I don't know, people always, like, say this shit to me, too, that don't live here. They're like, oh, my God, Chicago, like, there's so much, like, gun violence and shit like that. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's got its fair share. But this movie was, like, dialing that fear to 11. Like, when they're, like, going out to the hood, I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be stupid.
Yeah.
For sure. But she's, like, in her purse, she's got a taser. And I think she's got a gun. And then she's got pepper spray. And I'm just like, look, you're only going to get to use one.
Yeah.
First of all. So just pick one. Two, holy shit. Like, we're not going to war here. And yeah, she's totally right. You shouldn't be stupid going out anywhere, really. Like, especially a place that some people are like, oh, it's not safe. But I'll be really interested to see, like, what this new one is like.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, we're going to still hang out in that area now. And I think I'm glad Jordan Peele's attached, because that kind of, his whole shtick seems to be not just, like, racial inequality, but also, like, class inequality. And kind of running on that, like, okay, now it's gentrified and we're going to fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, we're going to watch a bunch of white people getting killed and they're all going to be rich or whatever. But I think, like, he does a good job going, like, hey, look at this thing. Look at this inequality. This neighborhood that used to be in the first movie, you remember that? It was in the fucking, like, no one would live here unless they were made to.
Yeah.
And it's like, now you have people paying literally $1 million to live in this.
Yeah.
Arguably the same fucking building, now just painted over and plastered on. And it's just, I'm hoping it's good. It looks like it's coming out in June this year, so.
Oh, cool.
Keep an eye out for that. Probably gonna be nice. So, with everything, though, our thoughts and things we got right, things we got wrong, where's this movie land for you? On that scale of 1 to 100, 1 to 10, however you want to break it out, in increments of 10?
I definitely probably give it a 6.
A 6?
Yeah, I feel like it was a.
What was lacking for you?
I think the main actress could have been better. Yeah. I mean, she wasn't, like, bad or anything, but it definitely was held up a lot more by the other people that were in it.
Yeah, I think everyone was doing, like, I feel like the supporting roles in this movie were really doing a lot better. And I mean, like, I feel like her and Tony Todd's interactions, like, I don't want to say, like, he was carrying it, but he was coming pretty close. Like, a lot of that vibe was coming to him. And she just kind of was like, but I don't want to kill anybody. And I'm like, I get it. She's supposed to be all hypnotized or whatever, but, like, she just sounds like she's falling asleep. Which, you know, if it wasn't for his... And if he just kept talking, I'd fall asleep too. He has a wonderful voice.
Yeah.
A nice deep voice, that guy. But, yeah, okay, so 6. Was there anything else holding you back from anything, like perfect score or whatever?
Yeah, I think having multiple endings was... Yeah, it was too much.
Like, pick one. Stick with it.
Yeah.
If you're going to make sequels... Honestly, Kid chucking the hook in, I think would have done it. Okay. Like, if you chuck the hook in there and then she comes back or he comes back or something in the next movie. Like,
I think it would be better if he came back.
I think so too. I'm just kind of like, with the funeral ending was like, that was it to me. Yeah. To me, it's like, that's the perfect ending. I don't need to see her get revenge from beyond on her ex-husband.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he's a piece of shit. Kill him in the next movie. Kill him at the beginning of the next movie or some shit. I think that was like because it felt complete. And then you don't have it. And then I'm kind of like, wait a minute, is it not Candyman anymore? Like,
yeah, is it Helen?
Is it Helen? Like, he says Helen 5 times and she appears. It's just like, so is the next movie just going to be called Helen? And is Tony Todd in it? Is it just going to be Helen killing people? Because I want to watch that. Like, that just sounds boring as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would give this movie, I'd probably set it at like a 770, whatever you want to run with there. Just because, like, it's for its time, I'm kind of like, whoa, like, this is not something I would have expected, because we're dealing with this, like, scary Stranger Things in it, or we're dealing with, like Nightmare on Elm Street, a bunch of teenagers or something, you know. We haven't hit Scream yet, so we're not doing the college or, like, you know, more risque end of the Scooby-Doo revival type deal. But we're doing something different, and I kind of liked that. because it's not just another like late 80s movie. It's something scary. And I think another thing that carries this movie too is the soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack was good.
Apparently the guy who did the soundtrack thought it was going to be a very spiritual remaking of the book that this is based on. Mm-hmm. And I guess he was super pissed off and disappointed when it came out. He considered it a like just another fucking slasher movie.
Oh.
And it came out like, but I mean honestly, like the soundtrack to this movie just completely changes the vibe. Like this could have been like, you know, a Jason Voorhees movie, or it could have been like a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was something I think in and of itself, and that was cool. And I think honestly the soundtrack really contributed a lot to that. Would you suggest people watch this movie?
Yeah, I think people should just watch it.
Yeah.
So that they...
Well, I think if you're going to go see the new one, you probably have to see it.
Yeah, so that they know what to expect.
Yeah, I would definitely say watch this. I mean, I would say also, like, especially watch it if you're into horror movies. Like, I mean, I've said this, I think, on the show before. I've really, up until recently, used to not really be into horror movies. And lately, Amber and I have been kind of, like, trying to hunt down either, you know, the cheesy as hell ones we can laugh at, or the ones that are, like, really good. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to really appreciate the genre more for it.
Yeah.
Still not a fan of Hereditary, guys. Never going to change. But I like Midsommar. But so, like, you know, especially with a lot of this, like, high horror stuff that's coming out, I'm, like, interested in it more. I'm curious what Candyman's going to be like. Is it going to be, like, a sad ripoff, or is it just going to be something fun, or is it going to be like, oh, shit, this is, you know, let's do this again and modernize it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely, I'd say go see this movie. Like, if you're into horror, I'd say for, like, 2020, like, you got to see this movie. This feels like so many other movies that come later that you really just should check it out. But I think that'll do it. So Amber, what do we have coming down the line for next time?
We've got Willow, 1988.
Ooh, I've always been curious about this movie. A friend of mine really likes it, or at least did when we were kids, and he'd always make references to it, and none of us would get it, and for some reason we never watched it. So it's nice to finally see it. That's Willow from 1988, directed by Ron Howard and written by George Lucas. Starring Val Kilmer, Joanne Whaley, and Warwick Davis. So come on down next time and catch us when we're doing Willow. But that's all for Candyman, so we'll see you guys next time. I, as always, am one of your hosts, Thomas.
I'm Amber.
And you guys have a great week.